Hey gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, your back porch professor, and there's never a dull day in the golden age, most especially in the rising of a new and very ancient civilizationalist world order, and we saw precisely that last night. While we were all sleeping, America's most elite warriors pulled off what military experts are even now calling an utterly impossible mission, a fortress that was supposed to be impenetrable, a dictator who thought he was completely untouchable, and steel doors that were designed to keep out entire armies. All of it breached in seconds. Last night, President Trump changed the game in Latin America forever. Now, to set the stage here, since he assumed power back in 2013, Venezuelan dictator Nicolas Maduro has been running what prosecutors are now calling one of the largest international drug trafficking operations in human history, pumping thousands of tons of cocaine into American streets. 300,000 Americans dead every year from the drug crisis. That's half of what we lost in all wars of the 20th century combined in a single year. And Trump has been giving Maduro basically an ultimatum. Your days as dictator have come to an end. You could go wherever you want. You could hide out in China. You could hide out in Russia. It doesn't matter. But your days as president of Venezuela are over. And obviously Maduro pushed back, saying that Trump was trying to steal Venezuela's oil and that he was an enemy of the Venezuelan revolution. And he threatened fierce armed resistance if Trump ever followed through on his own threats. Well, as of 2 a.m. Caracas time, Maduro entered the finding out phase of his effing around. Explosions rocked the Venezuelan capital. Low-flying aircraft screamed over the city. And within 3 hours, President Trump announced that the United States military had indeed successfully captured President Nicolas Maduro along with his wife and flown them out of the country to face trial here in the United States. Now, what we're learning today is that this wasn't just a military strike. This was a masterpiece of special operations warfare. It was called Operation Absolute Resolve. It involved Delta Force, right, America's most elite counterterrorism unit, working right alongside the legendary Night Stalkers. So that's the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment. 150 aircraft from 20 different bases and ships, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, fighter jets. They all provided air cover while helicopters swept in over the Caribbean. We're now learning that for the last several days, Delta Force operators had been tracking Maduro's movements, establishing what the military calls a pattern of life. So that involves basically mapping out his locations, his security, his routines. Two specialized Delta Force units, one redeployed from West Asia and the other one from North Africa. We're staging, they've been just waiting more or less for the perfect time to strike. And when they did, President Trump revealed that American forces had massive blowtorches ready to cut through thick steel barriers that were supposed to protect Maduro, but they didn't need them. They struck so fast, Maduro never even made it to his panic room. There are reports that our helicopters came under heavy fire from Venezuelan ground defenses, but they returned fire with devastating effect, and it has now been confirmed there were 0 American deaths in this operation. 0, not one. Now, as of the making of this video, Maduro and his wife, Celia Flores, they're aboard the USS Iwo Jima, and they're heading to New York to face the full weight of American justice. Attorney General Mamdani has unsealed the indictment this morning, and it's pretty staggering stuff. So, narco-terrorism conspiracy, cocaine importation conspiracy, possession of machine guns and destructive devices, conspiracy to possess machine guns and destructive devices against the United States. So, they're basically treating Maduro as a drug lord, not as a president. And Trump, of course, has declared all drug lords and cartel operations to be terrorists. They are narco-terrorists. And the indictment reveals that Maduro partnered with some of the world's most violent drug cartels. So that's FARC, F-A-R-C, the ELN, Tren de Aragua, and so on. And he used Venezuela's government institutions, its diplomatic passports, its law enforcement, to move cocaine loads with impunity. And basically, Trump said, not in our hemisphere. The days of narco-terrorists operating with impunity in the West are officially over. Now, of course, news of this astonishing operation had barely broken before every single Democrat jumped up and down, frothing at the mouth and declaring that this was a completely illegal action and Trump had no right doing this. He had to consult Congress. You see it all over MSNBC and CNN. I mean, it's frankly hilarious. Think about it. First, Trump got Democrats to side with illegal migrants. Then he got them to side with violent criminals. Then narco-terrorists, right? Now he's getting them to side with a Venezuelan dictator. I mean, the man is a political genius. But that said, my namesake, Jonathan Turley, the constitutional law expert, he's out there today explaining that the Maduro capture actually follows very established legal precedent that does not require congressional authorization of any kind. The operation mirrors the 1989 capture of the Panamanian dictator Manuel Noriega by Bush Sr. back in December of '89. Noriega was indicted on drug and money laundering charges. He was convicted in Miami, and he was sentenced to 40 years in prison. Like Maduro, Noriega faced a 4-count superseding indictment in the Southern District of New York for narco-terrorism, cocaine importation conspiracy, and weapons charges. And so when Democrats claim that Trump's action was unjustified, illegal, unprecedented, without congressional authorization, all that, they're not just wrong. They're also, frankly, hypocritical. You'll remember that President Obama actually killed an American citizen abroad under his kill list policy without a single Democrat so much as batting an eye. If Obama could vaporize an American citizen without so much as a hint of a criminal charge, Trump could capture a foreign citizen with a pending criminal indictment without prior congressional approval. For right or for wrong, the Noriega case established crucial legal precedents that applied directly to Maduro. The 11th Circuit rejected Noriega's head of state immunity claim because the United States never recognized him as Panama's legitimate ruler. The same argument applies to Maduro, whom the United States does not recognize as Venezuela's duly elected leader, certainly not after their last election fiasco there. And the Supreme Court's decision, United States versus Alvarez, further established that extradition treaties don't prohibit the United States from seizing foreign nationals when executing criminal warrants. Trump has had an outstanding arrest warrant for Maduro since March of 2020, his last year in office during his first term, which provides clear legal justification for this arrest. But beyond the legal framework, there's a geopolitical dimension as well, and that appears to be significantly more far-reaching here. We all know what's called the Monroe Doctrine, right? That's the 1823 U.S. foreign policy principle that declares the Western Hemisphere off limits to foreign colonization and intervention. President Trump just released their new national security strategy some weeks back, and this new policy explicitly states that we will deny external states the ability to position military forces or control strategically vital assets in our hemisphere. If China wants to buy a port in Peru, or if Iran wants to ship oil through the Caribbean, they got to answer to us. They got to answer to the Department of War. And bottom line, Venezuela has gotten way too cozy with China and Russia for Trump's liking. And so what we're really witnessing here is a rise of America, not just as a country or as a nation, but as a civilization state. A state that exercises governing control over its own civilizational hegemony. The old liberal international order that sought to enforce a one-size-fits-all global village through the UN and treaties and protocols, that world's dead. That's the world that forced us to fight endless wars tens of thousands of miles away, to enforce this one-size-fits-all globalist world order. The new revitalized Monroe Doctrine, instead, accepts the reality of a multipolar world, a world of multiple civilizational powers like Russia, China, India, that form the centers of their own civilizational spheres. And in such a world, we don't try to impose our values on every village in Afghanistan, as it were. Instead, we enforce the security and prosperity of our own civilizational sphere, specifically the Western Hemisphere. We're drawing a circle around the Americas. And inside that circle, American power is absolute. Outside that circle, we deal with nations transactionally, what's increasingly being called pragmatic engagement, like with the Middle East and Russia and China. And so in many respects, the arrest of Maduro and the seizures of those Venezuelan oil tankers, they send an unmistakable message to nations both within our hemisphere, like Cuba, and nations outside and around the world. The United States is done playing by globalist rules that no one else follows. We're securing our perimeter, we're taking what is ours, and we are unapologetically defending our civilization. So what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments section below. And as always, make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button for breaking news and analysis you're not going to hear anywhere else. Love you guys. God bless.